When did you last look in the mirror and wonder, not with fear, not with sadness, but with genuine curiosity, what your body is actually capable of right now? Not what it used to do, not what it could do at 40 or 50, right now, today, in this body, at this age. Because here is something that almost nobody is saying out loud, and it needs to be said. Most people between 65 and 85 who are aging remarkably well have no idea that they are. None. They are going about their days quietly convinced that they are losing ground, falling behind, sliding towards something, because that is the only story anyone has ever handed them about getting older. And while they are busy believing that story, their bodies are doing something that, by every scientific measure available, is genuinely extraordinary. There is a man named Walter. Walter is 78 years old. He lives alone in a house he has owned for 41 years in a mid-sized city in the American Midwest. He has a dog named Pepper, a vegetable garden that takes up more of his backyard every summer, whether he plans it that way or not, and a habit of waking up at 5:45 in the morning that started when he was working and simply never stopped. Walter's wife, Miriam, passed away 4 years ago. Since Miriam died, Walter has had 3 conversations with his doctor. In all 3, his doctor reviewed his numbers, mentioned that his blood pressure was a little elevated, discussed his cholesterol, recommended he cut back on red meat, and sent him home with a printed summary that Walter folded into quarters and put in the kitchen drawer where he keeps takeout menus and rubber bands. At no point in any of those 3 appointments did anyone tell Walter what his body was actually doing. At no point did anyone say, "Walter, do you realize what this means?" At no point did anyone sit across from a 78-year-old widower who wakes before dawn and tends a garden and still feels something when the first frost comes in October, and tell him that he was, by the most rigorous standards of current aging research, among the top 10% of biological agers in his age group. Nobody told Walter that, and it almost broke something in him that nobody ever did. Walter found out by accident. His daughter, a nurse practitioner named Diane, came to visit him in March. She came ostensibly to fix a sticky door and ended up staying 4 days because that is always how it goes when Diane visits. On the 3rd morning, she watched her father do something without thinking about it, without planning it, without any awareness that he was doing anything unusual at all. He walked from the kitchen to the back door, stepped out onto the uneven wooden step, crouched down to pick up a clay pot he'd left out over winter, stood back up, and walked inside. The whole thing took maybe 12 seconds. Diane stood very still. "Dad," she said when he came back in. "What?" He set the pot on the counter. "Do you know what you just did?" He looked at the pot, brought in the pot. "Dad, you squatted down from standing, picked up a 15-pound pot, and stood back up in one movement. No hands, no pause, no..." She stopped. "How often do you do things like that?" Walter thought about it. "I don't know. All the time. It's a garden." Diane sat down at the kitchen table. She had been a nurse practitioner for 19 years. She had worked in geriatrics for 11 of those years. She had assessed thousands of patients between the ages of 65 and 85, and she knew, with the precision of someone who had been trained to see it and had then spent a decade watching it in real bodies, exactly what that movement meant. It meant that her father's hip flexors, quadriceps, glutes, and core were all working in coordinated sequence. It meant his balance and proprioception were intact. It meant his nervous system was integrating complex multi-joint movement without hesitation. It meant that a cluster of biological systems that routinely begin to fail in people his age were, in Walter's body, still operational. Not just intact, functional, strong, working. "Dad," Diane said carefully, "I want to talk to you about something, and I need you to actually listen because I don't think anyone has ever told you this before." Walter sat down across from her. What? He said. He was slightly suspicious. He had the look of a man who had been told bad news before and had learned to brace quietly. You're aging really well, Diane said. I mean that in the clinical sense, in the research sense. What you just did, what I just watched you do without even thinking about it. There are 5 specific abilities that gerontologists use as markers of biological aging. And from what I can see, you have all of them. All 5, Dad. That puts you in the top 10% of people your age for how your body is actually functioning. Walter stared at her. The pot, he said. It started with the pot, Diane said. But it's not just the pot. Walter didn't say anything for a long time. He looked out the window at his garden, at the bare beds and the frost-hardened soil and the place where the tomatoes would go in May. Miriam always said I was stubborn, he finally said. She meant it as a compliment, I think. Diane smiled. She was right. Stubbornness is actually a documented longevity trait. There's a paper on it. Walter laughed, a real one, the surprised kind. Of course there is, he said. This video is for Walter. It is for everyone who has been handed only the story of decline and never the story of persistence. It is for everyone who has sat in a waiting room and received a printed summary and driven home with it folded into quarters and never once been told what is right, what is working, what their body is quietly doing every single day, without recognition, without acknowledgement, without anyone saying the words that change something. These are the 5 abilities. They are not dramatic. They are not the things you would expect. And if you have them, even partially, even imperfectly, even on your bad days, your body is doing something that 90% of people your age are no longer able to do. Let's begin. Ability 1. You can still balance on one leg for 10 seconds. In 2022, a team of researchers at a clinical research center in Brazil published a study that quietly changed the way a significant number of gerontologists think about aging. The study followed 1,702 people between the ages of 51 and 75 for an average of 7 years. The researchers asked participants to complete a physical test that took less than 30 seconds. They were not asked to run. They were not asked to lift anything. They were not asked to complete a complex series of exercises. They were asked to stand on one leg for 10 seconds. That was the entire test. The results were striking enough that they were covered by medical publications on 6 continents within 3 months of release. People who could not complete the 10-second single-leg stand were nearly twice as likely to die from any cause over the following decade, regardless of age, regardless of body weight, regardless of cardiovascular history, compared to those who could complete it. Twice as likely. And the 10-second balance test was a stronger predictor of 10-year survival than systolic blood pressure, total cholesterol, or body mass index. Every single one of those more famous, more commonly tested, more widely discussed health markers, weaker than standing on one leg for 10 seconds. The reason this single movement carries so much information is not because of your leg. It is because of everything your leg is connected to. Balancing on one leg demands that your inner ear, specifically the vestibular system, send accurate spatial information to your brain. It demands that your brain integrate that information with visual input from your eyes and positional feedback from the muscles and joints in your leg and foot. It demands that your core activate to stabilize your spine. It demands that multiple neural pathways fire in the correct sequence, and that your cerebellum, the part of your brain that coordinates movement, modulate tiny, continuous corrections to keep you upright. You are not balancing with your leg. You are balancing with your nervous system, your inner ear, your vision, your brain, your core, and your proprioceptive network, all at once, all in real time, all without thinking about it. Think of it this way. Your ability to balance is the output of an orchestra that involves more sections than most people ever consider. when every musician is playing, when every section is reading from the same score, the performance is seamless. You stand on one leg and you barely notice you were doing it. You walk on uneven ground without thinking. You reach up and turn at the same time without consciously calculating anything. But when one musician starts to lose the tempo, when the vestibular system sends slightly degraded signals, or when the neural pathways slow just enough to introduce a lag, the whole orchestra shifts. The output is wobbly, hesitant, slightly behind. And that wobble, that hesitation, is visible in the balance test long before it becomes visible anywhere else. Walter learned about this test from Diane that same morning. He stood in his kitchen, still in his socks, and lifted his right foot off the floor. He counted to himself. He made it to 12 before he put his foot back down. Not 10 seconds. 12. Diane wrote something in the small notebook she always carried. Walter pretended not to notice, but he noticed. Other foot, she said. He lifted his left foot. 11 seconds. Diane wrote something else. What are you writing? Walter asked. Evidence, she said. If you haven't tried the balance test recently, try it when you want. Be somewhere safe, near a wall or a counter you can grab if you need to. Just stand up, lift one foot, and count. If you reach 10 seconds, even with your arms adjusting, even with a slight sway, your vestibular system, your neural coordination, and your core integration are all working in a way that a significant percentage of your peers can no longer reliably achieve. And if you can reach 10 seconds yet, the research on balance training in older adults is among the most consistently encouraging in all of gerontology. People in their late 70s and early 80s who begin balance exercises show measurable neurological improvement, not over months, over weeks. 4 to 6 weeks of regular practice. Your nervous system is not finished adapting. It is not done learning. It is simply waiting to be asked. Abilities number 2. You can still get up off the floor without using your hands. There is a Brazilian physician named Claudio Gil Araújo who, sometime in the early 2000s, began doing something unusual with his patients. Instead of starting their appointments with a blood pressure cuff and a questionnaire, he would ask them to sit down on the floor of his examination room. And then he would ask them to get up. No hands, no touching their knees to the floor to push off. Just sit down and get up. He watched thousands of patients do this over several years. And what he saw, or rather what he noticed about the gap between the people who could do it easily and the people who could not, led him to one of the most frequently cited studies in modern preventive medicine. The sitting rising test, as it came to be known, assigns a score out of 10. 5 points for sitting down without assistance, 5 for rising without it. Points are deducted for each support used: a hand on the floor, a knee pressing down, a hand braced on a thigh. Each point deducted carries a 21% increase in all-cause mortality over the following 6 years. 21% per point. Araújo published his findings in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology, and the response from the medical community was substantial enough that the test has since been incorporated into longevity assessments in clinics from São Paulo to Singapore. The sitting-rising test matters so much, not because getting up from the floor is a particularly important life skill, though it is, but because of what it requires to do it. Full range of motion in the hips and ankles. Quadriceps strength sufficient to generate the force needed to rise without mechanical assistance. Core stability to maintain balance during the transition. Coordination and timing across multiple joint systems simultaneously. And something that physical therapists call kinesthetic awareness, the body's ability to know where it is in space during a moving, changing task. To get up from the floor without using your hands, every single one of those systems has to be working, and they have to be working together. What Araújo was measuring wasn't fitness. It wasn't athletic ability. It was the degree to which the body's fundamental movement infrastructure, the deep, load-bearing, coordinating systems that make physical life possible, remained intact. And and the people in whom those systems had begun to silently degrade were statistically and measurably not going to live as long. The floor was just where the evidence showed up. Walter, when Diane described this test to him, did not hesitate. He walked to the center of his living room, which had enough open space because Walter was not a man who accumulated furniture, and he sat down on the floor. He sat cross-legged for a moment, the way he used to in the small moments of his life he rarely thought about. On the floor with his children when they were young, on the grass at the park with Miriam on Sunday afternoons. Then he got up, one fluid push from the legs, a shift of weight, and he was standing. No hands, no knee to the floor. Diane, who was watching from the doorway with her arms crossed and her nurse practitioner face on, the expression that meant she was observing and calculating simultaneously, let out a breath. "You didn't use your hands," she said. "Was I supposed to?" Walter said. "No," Diane said. "That's the point. If you can get up from the floor without using your hands, even if it takes a moment, even if your knees express some opinions about the whole enterprise, your hip mobility, your leg strength, your core coordination, and your kinesthetic awareness are all working in a way that the sitting rising test quantifies as genuinely excellent for your age group. You are carrying within you a kind of structural resilience that most people your age have already quietly lost. That is not a small thing. That is the infrastructure of a life that can still reach the ground and come back. Ability 3. You still have a strong grip. There is a measurement so simple, so quick, so completely underestimated by almost everyone who has it taken that most people forget it happened within minutes of leaving their doctor's office. A small handheld device. You squeeze it as hard as you can. The number appears, the doctor writes it down and moves on. That number is your grip strength. And it is carrying information about you that most people, including most doctors, have not yet fully internalized. In 2015, The Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world, published the results of the PURE study, which tracked nearly 140,000 people across 17 countries over a period of years. Among the many things the researchers measured was grip strength. What they found became one of the most cited findings in preventive medicine of the last decade. Grip strength was a stronger predictor of cardiovascular death than systolic blood pressure. Not equal to, stronger than. The measurement that doctors have used as the cornerstone of cardiovascular monitoring for over a century was outperformed as a predictor of who would live and who would die by how hard a person could squeeze a small device. The reason grip strength predicts so much is the same reason the balance test and the sitting rising test predict so much. It is a proxy, a visible surface expression of systems running far below. Grip strength reflects the quality of skeletal muscle throughout your entire body, not just your hands, your whole musculature. It reflects your protein synthesis efficiency, which is the speed at which your body can build and maintain muscle tissue. It reflects your neurological drive, the integrity of the motor pathways between your brain and your muscles. It reflects your systemic inflammatory status, because chronic inflammation degrades muscle quality faster than almost anything else. And it reflects your nutritional status, because the machinery that maintains grip strength requires adequate protein, vitamin D, and a functioning hormonal system to operate. When you squeeze that small device, you are squeezing through all of it at once. For men between 65 and 85, research guidelines generally set healthy grip strength at above 26 kilograms of force. For women in the same age range, above 16 kilograms. But Diane told her father something more important than the numbers. It's not the absolute strength that matters most, she said. It's the trajectory. It's what's happening over time. A grip that has remained stable over several years, that hasn't fallen significantly, is a body maintaining its muscle quality in the face of every force working against it. Time. Hormone changes. The subtle losses of a sedentary afternoon. The slow arithmetic of entropy that accumulates in every body from the moment it stops growing. A stable grip is a body that is winning that arithmetic. Walter, it turned out, opened his own jars. This emerged not from any test, but from a conversation at the kitchen table when Diane asked him, almost casually, who helped him with things around the house. What things? Walter asked. Jars, said. Heavy doors, things like that. Walter looked mildly offended. I opened my own jars, he said. All of them? I have a rubber gripper for the pickle jar, Walter said, with the tone of a man making a perfectly reasonable concession. But everything else, yes. Diane smiled. The rubber gripper, she noted privately, was completely fine. The point was that Walter was still engaging with the physical resistance of daily life, still demanding something from his hands and forearms, in the small, continuous, unremarkable way that keeps those systems running. Every jar, every door, every bag of soil carried from the car to the garden, every single one of them, without his knowing, was a workout for a biomarker that the Lancet had identified as among the most powerful predictors of human longevity currently known to science. Ability number 4. You sleep deeply enough to dream. Walter mentioned it without knowing what it meant. They were eating dinner, soup that Diane had made from things she found in his refrigerator, the way she always did when she visited. And Walter said, out of nowhere, that he'd had a strange dream the night before. He described it. A house he'd lived in as a child. A field behind it that doesn't exist anymore. Miriam was there, but she was young, younger than he'd ever actually known her, the way dreams work on time. He'd woken up at 4 a.m. and he'd lain there in the dark for a few minutes with the feeling of it still on him. I dream a lot, he said. Always have. Is that weird? At my age. Diane put down her spoon. Dad, she said. No, the opposite of weird. Vivid, consistent dreaming in older adults is one of the most underappreciated markers of neurological health available to gerontologists, and it is almost never discussed in routine medical care. Here is why it matters so much. Dreams, specifically the rich, narrative, emotionally textured dreams that feel real and that you can remember, occur during rapid eye movement sleep. REM sleep is not simply a stage of sleep. It is a biological state that requires an extraordinary degree of neural coordination to achieve and maintain. To reach and sustain REM sleep, your brain must successfully cycle through the earlier stages, light sleep, slow wave sleep, and the transition into REM, multiple times over the course of a single night. Each cycle takes roughly 90 minutes. Each successful REM period grows longer as the night progresses. The vivid dreams that stay with you into waking are generally products of the later, longer REM periods in the early morning hours. To produce those dreams consistently, your sleep architecture, the internal structure of how your brain moves through its nightly cycles, must be intact. In many people as they age, that architecture begins to fragment. The slow-wave deep sleep stages, the ones that come early in the night and are essential for physical restoration, shorten and eventually nearly disappear. REM periods compress. The cycling between stages becomes less regular, more interrupted. Dreaming fades, not suddenly, not dramatically, but by degrees, like music becoming quieter in another room. And when sleep architecture fragments, the consequences are not just about feeling tired. Deep sleep is when the brain's glymphatic system activates. The glymphatic system is the brain's waste clearance mechanism, a network of channels through which cerebrospinal fluid flows during sleep, flushing out metabolic byproducts, including the amyloid proteins associated with cognitive decline. This system is most active during slow-wave sleep and requires intact sleep cycling to function. Deep sleep is also when the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory consolidation center, transfers information from short-term encoding into long-term storage. The conversations you had, the things you read, the faces you saw, the details you want to keep. All of that consolidation happens in the night, in the deep stages, in the cycling. And REM sleep specifically appears to be essential for emotional processing, for integrating difficult experiences, for finding narrative in what happened, for the brain's version of filing day, events in a way that makes them bearable and retrievable. When you dream vividly, you are confirming with every remembered image, every felt emotion, every morning moment of, I have to think about what that was, that your brain is cycling correctly. That the architecture is intact, that the glymphatic system has had its nightly activation, that the hippocampus has been consolidating, that you have a brain that is still doing, in the dark, every night, the maintenance work that keeps everything running. Walter wrote down the dream about Miriam that morning. He hadn't realized until Diane asked him about it that he'd been writing down his dreams irregularly for over a year. There was a composition notebook in the drawer of his nightstand with maybe 40 pages of entries in it, not all of them coherent, not all of them more than a few lines, but all of them there. I don't know why I do it, he told Diane. It just feels like, I don't know, like something worth keeping. It is, Diane said. She meant the dreams. She also meant something larger than the dreams, and she hoped he understood that. Walter wrote down the dream about Miriam that morning. He hadn't realized until Diane asked him about it that he'd been writing down his dreams irregularly for over a year. There was a composition notebook in the drawer of his nightstand with maybe 40 pages of entries in it, not all of them coherent, not all of them more than a few lines, but all of them there. I don't know why I do it, he told Diane. It just feels like, I don't know, like something worth keeping. It is, Diane said. She meant the dreams. She also meant something larger than the dreams, and she hoped he understood that. Ability 5. You still feel genuinely curious about something. This is the one that surprises people most. Not balance, not grip, not sleep. Curiosity. When researchers who study exceptional aging, people who live past 90 and 100 with their cognition and their joy relatively intact, look for the single trait most consistently present in that group, the trait that keeps appearing above fitness and diet and genetics and all of the other candidates, the one that sits at the center of every data set like a variable that refuses to be moved, it is curiosity. Active, persistent, unglamorous, deeply personal curiosity. A study from the University of California, Davis, examined over 300 older adults and found that curiosity, specifically the mental state of actively wanting to learn something, triggered a release of dopamine in the mesolimbic pathway, which is the brain's primary reward circuit. This dopamine release did not just make the person feel good. It enhanced memory encoding not only for the information they were curious about, but for everything they encountered in the heightened state of curiosity around it. Curious people, in other words, remembered more of everything, not just the things they were curious about. Their brains were running in a state of heightened readiness. But the research on curiosity and aging goes deeper than memory. Multi-decade longitudinal studies tracking participants from middle age into their 80s and 90s have found that what researchers term epistemic engagement, which is simply the tendency to keep wanting to know things, to stay interested in the world, to treat unanswered questions as invitations rather than inconveniences, is associated with reduced inflammatory markers in the blood, stronger immune response, and meaningfully lower rates of cognitive decline. The mechanism appears to involve multiple pathways. Curious people tend to seek social engagement to pursue their curiosity. They call someone to ask about something. They find a group that talks about what they're interested in. They have conversations with purpose and direction. Social engagement is itself one of the most reliably protective factors in aging research. Curious people tend to have lower levels of the stress hormones, specifically cortisol and adrenaline, that, when chronically elevated, degrade hippocampal tissue and accelerate cellular aging. Curiosity creates a positive orientation toward uncertainty rather than a threatened one. The unknown becomes interesting rather than frightening. And curious people, almost by definition, keep using their brains in demanding ways, which maintains and in some cases regenerates the neural density that protects against cognitive decline. Walter had been curious his entire life in a way that he had never once thought to call a health habit. He was curious about weather patterns and had a rain gauge in his garden that he'd been recording every week for 11 years. He was curious about the birds that visited his feeders and had a beaten field guide with the margins full of his own notes, dates, locations, behaviors he'd observed that weren't in the book. He was curious about what was happening in the world and read 2 newspapers, one of which he subscribed to in print because he liked the feel of it. He was curious about his neighbors' lives and remembered details about them, their children's names, their health situations, their small complaints, in a way that people found either touching or slightly unnerving depending on how well they knew him. He had never thought of any of this as anything other than being the person he was. Diane, when Walter told her about the rain gauge journal, asked to see it. He brought it from the shelf in the mudroom. A composition notebook identical to the dream journal, except this one was almost completely full. 11 years of weekly measurements. Notes about storms. Notes about the garden's response to rainfall. A section in the back where he started correlating his rain data with the city's official weather records to see where they diverged and why. Diane held the notebook and did not say anything for a long moment. "What?" Walter said. "There's a paper," Diane said slowly, by a researcher at Yale, about the relationship between ongoing purposeful data collection and preservation of executive function in adults over 70. The hypothesis is that maintaining a self-defined recording practice, something you invented for your own reasons, that you maintain for your own purposes, exercises the exact cognitive systems most at risk of decline. Walter looked at his rain gauge journal. "I just wanted to know how much it rained," he said. "I know," Diane said. "That's exactly the point." Your curiosity is not a personality quirk. It is not an eccentricity or a hobby or a way of passing time. It is a neurological practice. It is an immune system intervention. It is an inflammatory regulation strategy. It is a cognitive maintenance program that no pharmaceutical company can package and no clinic can prescribe. It is the part of you that has never decided it was done. And if it is still alive in you, if there is still something that makes you want to know more, something that makes you lean forward, something that makes you look something up instead of letting it pass, something that still has the word why in it, your brain is receiving one of the most powerful longevity signals available to human biology. It is still being told by you that the world is worth understanding. What this all means. By the end of the 3rd day of Diane's visit, Walter had a single sheet of paper on his kitchen table. Diane had written on it, in her clear, practical handwriting. Balance on one leg. Left 11 seconds, right 12 seconds. Sitting, rising test. Rows without hands, no knee support. Estimated score, 9/10. Grip strength. Not formally measured, but functional assessment. Opens jars, carries soil bags, maintains garden tools. Consistent with above average for age group. sleep architecture reports vivid, consistent, memorable dreaming. Active dream journal maintained for 14 months. REM cycling intact. Epistemic engagement, active curiosity across multiple domains. 11-year rain gauge data collection. Field guide annotation. Sustained information seeking. Newspaper consumption. At the bottom, underlined, Diane had written, all 5 present. Top decile for biological aging, 78-year-old male. Walter read it twice. Then he folded it and put it in the kitchen drawer. Not under the takeout menus. On top. Here is what the science of aging keeps trying to say, and what our culture keeps finding difficult to hear. Decline is real. It is true. Everybody changes. The arithmetic of time is not suspended for anyone. But the story of a body between 65 and 85 is not only a story of subtraction. For many people, for more people than anyone is telling them, it is also a story of extraordinary, stubborn, quiet persistence, of systems that are still working, of abilities that are still present, of a brain that is still cycling and consolidating and dreaming and wanting to know things, of a body that can still squat to pick up a clay pot in the morning and rise without hands from the floor in the afternoon and stand on one leg in the kitchen in its socks and count to 12. None of those things are small. In the language of the research, every single one of them is remarkable. The 5 abilities, balance, floor mobility, grip strength, deep sleep, and curiosity, are not the abilities that make headlines. They will not make anyone feel like an athlete or a hero. They are quieter than that. They are the abilities that mean you can still get up and down. That mean your brain is still cleaning itself at night. That mean your nervous system is still integrating. That mean there is still something in you that finds the world interesting enough to lean toward. They are the abilities that mean you are still, in the most biological and the most human sense of the word, fully here. Walter called Diane 3 weeks after she went home. He called at 7 a.m., which was typical for Walter, who did not operate on other people's schedules and had never fully accepted that his daughter might not also be awake and drinking coffee at 7 a.m. on a Thursday. Diane was, in fact, awake and drinking coffee. She answered on the second ring. "I've been thinking," Walter said without preamble. "About what?" "About what you told me. About the 5 things." Diane waited. "I think Miriam knew," Walter said. "I think she always knew I think she knew what you were describing. She never had the words for it, but I think she saw it." Diane didn't say anything. "She used to say I was indestructible," Walter said. "I always thought she meant it as a complaint." Diane laughed. "She meant it as a love letter, Dad." "I want to ask you something before you go. Which one surprised you? Was it the balance, the 10-second test that predicted survival better than blood pressure? Was it the floor, the idea that getting up from the ground is a window into a decade of health? Was it the grip, the thought that how hard you can squeeze a jar is measuring your cardiovascular system? Was it the sleep, the recognition that your vivid dreams are your brain's maintenance report? Was it the curiosity, the understanding that whatever it is you keep looking up, keep wondering about, keep leaning toward, is one of the most powerful things your biology can do for itself? Leave it in the comments. Tell me which one surprised you. Tell me which ones you have. Tell me what your curiosity is, the specific, personal, slightly odd thing that you keep following, even though nobody assigned it to you, even though there's no particular reason to, even though it just matters to you, because it matters to you. Tell me if you tried the balance test. Tell me if you got up off the floor. Tell me if you are, like Walter, someone who keeps a rain gauge journal and never once thought to call it medicine. Because the comments on this video are going to become something. They're going to become a record of real people between 65 and 85 and beyond who found out, maybe for the first time, that their bodies were doing something remarkable all along. That they were, without knowing it, among the 10%. And that somebody finally thought to tell them. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.